I asked you to give me your worst software ideas, and you guys didn't disappoint. Everyone on YouTube is trying to make you become a better developer. But today, I wanna make software so bad that you become a bad developer just by looking at it. Hi, my name is Lewis, and if you're new here, I'm a professional software developer on a mission to inspire developers and tech enthusiasts to make and use better software. I mean, apart from today. I asked you on the YouTube community tab some suggestions for your crappy software ideas, and I received hundreds. I'm gonna take you on my journey of creating 3 of these abominations of apps. Make sure you follow me on Twitter too, which is where I'll be asking for your crappy software ideas again. All right, let's get started. Check if a word is spelled correctly by creating a for loop to compare it to every single word in the English language. That is just absurd. All right, this is great or a not so great opportunity to learn the Rust programming language. So let's give this a try. I need to first get a list of English words. This repository called English Words has a file called words.txt that has almost 500,000 English words. This file is almost 5 megabytes big. Think about that, folks. 5 megabytes of text. If you were to fill out an entire page of words, you'd go through 417 different documents. Wow. So here's how I envision it working. The application will store your keystrokes into an array as you type them. As soon as you hit space or some punctuation, it will then take the word that was formed and scan across the entire list of words one by one. Depending on the result, we'll prompt the user with a valid or invalid message. The key here is to make the application as unbearably annoying as possible. So let's get started. Okay, I gotta take this off. Real programmers code with just a shirt on. Now, like I said before, this is the perfect opportunity to learn the Rust programming language, which I discussed in a video beforehand. So check that out if you wanna see other technologies I'm learning. I've been trying to learn it for a while, and I just really never had the motivation to just dive in to the Rust programming language. So this is going to be it right here. Getting started took way longer than I needed to. However, after watching some Primeagen and some Let's Get Rusty, as well as the Rust programming language book, I was able to get something pretty quickly. Also, thank you to Casper for helping me out as well. So my experience with TypeScript made it a little bit easier to jump into Rust, but still was no easy feat. After maybe 2 to 3 hours of trying to wrangle Rust, I have a pretty good testing version that runs in the command line. After running, it's not as slow as I thought. So let me just add some testing stuff here. After adding some code to test how fast it's going, we're getting speeds of like 635 milliseconds. Wow, Rust is really fast. Scanning a 5 megabyte file only taking half a second is beyond insane, but maybe I just underestimated Rust. So running basically the same code in Python, you get almost 1 second to do this. Let's see if there's an even bigger list of words somewhere on the internet. No luck on finding an even bigger list of words, but I was thinking, what if we do different languages? So I inserted Spanish and German as well and got close to 1 million different words to count from. So adding this now doubles the amount of time to 1.2 seconds. Now, of course, it would be efficient to lowercase the word before you start comparing it so that you don't have to go over it twice, right? But what if we do 2 loops instead? One that checks all uppercase and one that checks all lowercase. This is how you do 900 IQ programming here, folks. So I went ahead and implemented 2 loops that run one after the other. It's funny because it feels so wrong to write it this way. But remember, this is crappy software. That's why you're here. After all is said and done, we're at 1.5 seconds per word. I think this is actually a pretty good balance between like annoyingly noticeable and just downright infuriating. The next part though, I almost ripped my hair out. Something that is a huge issue with working with Rust at the moment is working on graphical user interfaces. There's even a website dedicated to seeing if Rust is GUI ready yet. I spent a couple of days trying to build a Rust GUI using the Cocoa bindings for Mac. However, Mac needs everything running on the main thread, but also the event listener that's listening to all your keystrokes needs to be running on the main thread as well. And I'm just way too much of a noob to figure this all out right now. So it's an absolute nightmare. Also, because of this, I'm spending way too much time on this really crappy software. So I'm going to just return to Rust in the foreseeable future and just create a Chrome extension instead. I'm coming back for you, Rust, and I'm gonna prove to you that I'm not a soy dev. Okay, so funny enough, this is actually gonna be my first Chrome extension. So I had to familiarize myself with a couple things first, but the concept really isn't too hard. 1, in a manifest file, you define the permissions, names, and other things. 2, content scripts are JavaScript files that are injected into web pages by the extension. So this is where we'll be able to track our user's input. And 3, background scripts run in the background of the browser, even when the user isn't actively interacting with our extension. This is just scratching the surface of it. But for our application, that's how it's gonna work. What's cool is that even though I wrote this whole thing in Rust, it's easy to just convert it over into TypeScript. Surprisingly, it wasn't too hard. Like, come on, if you can do it in Rust, you can do it anywhere. So after implementing the results, you can for sure notice a little bit of lag, but it isn't quite infuriating. I want the user to want to punch their computer because of how annoying my Chrome extension is. What can we do to just make this downright infuriating? What if we disable all the inputs in the tab when the user hits space and enters punctuation? That way there is nothing to do but wait for the input. So in order to do this, we have to add an event listener to every input that is in your current tab. And once a certain key is pressed, it will take all of the inputs and disable it. That way, you can't keep typing. Then, once it's finished, it will let you back in and continue typing. So I got to work right away on this. This was pretty easy because you just have to look for all the inputs on the screen, just add an event listener and basically add all of the one function. Okay, so after adding that, it's already pretty annoying, but it almost looks like some sort of like malware is currently on your computer, which is annoying, but like it's intentionally annoying. I kind of want the application to feel like it's just some crappy application that you downloaded, which I know that's like the whole point. I get the irony, but what can I do for this application to make it look like it's actually trying to help you versus it intentionally being annoying? What if we add functionality so that it opens up a pop-up every time you hit enter and gives you the current status of what is happening? Kind of like Grammarly or one of these other softwares you have installed somewhere on your computer, but 10x dumber. Now, creating an HTML element isn't fun in strictly JavaScript, but here's my attempt. Now, I just have to hook it up to the English word scanner to see if it works. Maybe we can remove the word if it's not in there. All right, so after typing this out, oh God, this is seriously infuriating to type with already. I'm only one word in and it's just freaking annoying. A fair warning, I actually had this app running when I was doing something pretty critical on a forum that lasted a very long time. Oh man, never again. I had to restart my whole tab just for it to work. Imagine if you're trying to buy concert tickets and then this ended up happening to you. And that's basically the software. It's annoying, it sucks, it has no good use case, but it was fun to make. Something I like about this project is that it really shows how much can happen behind the scenes when you're doing something simple, like just typing things on your computer. And if you're actually looking to build an application like this, there's so many better ways to do this. Obviously, using hash maps or in Python, it's literally called a dictionary. You can do searches much easier and lightweight. Also, the concept of asynchronous comes in handy. That's why you see the red line a little bit after you type the word. A much better user experience, but you already know this. However, this would be a really good way to prank your friends if you installed this on their browser and just annoy them that way. I mean, they probably will completely destroy their computer this way. The next idea, this one's good. Make an AI that is in depression. Okay, so in order to get the right training data, I figured that I'll get the training data right from the source of who knows depression the most. Me, what am I doing with my life? I think a fun little game would be to have a sad robot that you talk to and your goal is to cheer the robot up. So maybe you have a little chat box on the left and then an animated character on the right that is representing the current state of the bot. It starts off really sad and your goal is to make it up to a happy state. Now, this is gonna be a really, really silly application, but I think we can make it work. So this will be a simple web application with a backend that can talk to OpenAPI's ChatGPT model. We'll create a React frontend that will have the chat window and the robot. And then something that would be cool is a 3D character that is going to do animations based on its current state. Now, I love making up ideas of things that I have no idea on how to do. And in this case, it's 3D modeling. So I'm gonna download this 3D model off of Sketchfab and bring it into Blender to do a T-pose. I am also not an expert in rigging either, go figure. So I'm just gonna bring it into Mixamo and let it create the animations for me as well. Now, there's a lot of really cool animations, and I think this does the trick for what we're looking to do. I just downloaded a handful of animations that I want it to do when a certain action is triggered. Okay, let's just generate a quick React app and then just have Three.js render out the character, doing the animation, and then make a chat window on the left. Also, I'm using Material UI to do 90% of the styling for me because Professionals have deadlines, you know. So I was able to make the layout pretty basic, just the chat on the left and a quick render of the bot on the right. I'm using Three.js Fiber to help me do the rendering of the character. It's also a really easy way for me to bring in the 3D files so I can trigger it whenever. Okay, so this took me an embarrassingly long time to do since I have no familiarity with 3D software and 3D concepts. But hey, guess what? I learned what a vector 3 is, so I'm pretty much an expert in this now. Yeah, I know that this is not perfect, but I think it's a good time to work on what BobBot, which I just made up right now, has to say to us. I really don't think this should be a hard application whatsoever. It's also not going to be a very intelligent AI. I think if we just have an API endpoint that uses a couple of large language models, I think that will suffice. I also don't think storing the responses in a database or anything is really worth it for this level of application at the moment. So I'm just going to use Fast API in a Docker container to power this. Now, using OpenAI's API, say that 3 times fast, is extremely straightforward, and I've actually already done a video where I do it with GPT-4. But for this time, we're just going to use the GPT 3.5 Turbo, that's what it's called, model to just make us go faster. We'll also get faster response times as well. Here's how it's going to work. You gonna roll it well, or? You constantly feed this into the API so you can capture the context of what is being said. So once we rig up Fast API to be able to accept requests and go through OpenAI, we now get close to a final result. It's already pretty hilarious talking back and forth with BobBot, whatever his name is. However, I think it's time to make the chat look a little bit more, chat-like. Nobody's chatting like this. This part challenged me just a little bit as I haven't used CSS in a very long time. I took inspiration from iMessage with a gray response and a green text forward. I don't think I did the correct thing when it comes to margins, but I don't want to spend too much time on this, so I'm cool with how it is. The background gradient could also be a lot nicer, but it does the trick for now. Listen, I'm building crappy software here. Stop judging me. After implementing all of that, it looks pretty awesome. However, BobBot still just does the same animation throughout the entire application runtime. So what's even the point of him being there at this point? Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I've been at this for like hours and hours on end now, but I'm having a lot of fun. So I'm gonna do the thing that I shouldn't do, but I'm gonna do anyway. Let's add more features to this. What have you guys done to me? Now, it's not really clear how BobBot is currently feeling. So why don't we have a metric of some sort that determines the current state that BobBot is in? Now, in the world of artificial intelligence, there's something called sentiment analysis. If you go to any cloud provider, Hugging Face, or even the open source community, you'll see that there are lots of places you can implement this in your application. It uses natural language processing to determine if something being said is positive, neutral, or negative. Now, I want this app to be as fast as possible, and we're already using Python, so let's choose wisely here. Since this will be deployed on AWS already, I'm going to use AWS's sentiment analysis since it can be processed on their servers and the response can just be pushed back to me. We're just gluing things together here, folks. It's not really hard implementing this as well because I'm already familiar with the AWS Boto 3 ecosystem, and trust me, it hurt a lot trying to learn that. And I'm already familiar with OpenAI's API as well as Fast API. God, I'm saying API too much. So it took me about an hour to implement all this just to do a little bit of troubleshooting back and forth. But here's how it works now. When you send a message to my server, it will put the message and wait for OpenAI's response. That will then be sent into the sentiment analysis API to determine the sentiment. Whatever's returned, there will also be returned with the message. In our app, we use that sentiment to determine what animation to play for BobBot. And you know what? Implementation was extremely easy. Of course, how are the clouds gonna get your money then? I also had to pull my hair a little bit more about this Three.js and Blender to get the camera angles and actions to work, but finally we got something pretty awesome. Should I stop working on this? Yes, I should stop working on this, but I need to add one more feature. One more feature. What if we gave the user some tips to cheer up BobBot every time they sent a message? This will give the user a little bit more understanding of what to do when talking to BobBot. So this also was pretty easy as well. I just created another OpenAI call that did some prompt engineering. I'm a little bit of an expert, PhD prompt engineer. You give the response from BobBot and tell it to give tips on how to improve Bob's mood. You then add that in the response and find a way to render it in the front end. In this case, I'm going to use Material UI's alert that will pop up and display different depending on the sentiment. This can give the user some urgency if they're feeling bad. And after playing around, I think we have a fun little project. So let's give it a try. So this took a long time to make this. Surprisingly, it took me like 4 or 5 hours, but here we are. Now I made this cool little animation that kind of like zooms in at first. So you know, 3D expert here. So let's just see. Hi, Bob. How are you? I also like his little thinking. That's supposed to be thinking. It's supposed to be like, but instead he's almost like, you know, like, hello there, I'm not doing very well. The weight of sadness is heavy on my virtual heart. Oh my God. What can I do to help? See if I can trigger all animations. Yeah, again. All right, let's see what's wrong. I'm not sure there's anything you can do. I just feel a deep sense of emptiness and sadness that's hard to shake. Okay, that's just really depressing. Tell me a funny story. Let's see if that's gonna get him there. So here are a couple of ways to cheer them up, okay? Validate their feelings and let them know it's okay to be not okay. Offer a list, okay, let's try that then. Hey, Bob Bot, it's okay to not feel okay. Let's watch your favorite movie. What even is their favorite movie? What even is Bob Bot's favorite movie anyway? All right, he has mixed feelings on it. It's funny, again, the thinking, I made the thinking the mixed feeling of it, because now he's going like, still going like, Thank you for understanding, but honestly, I don't feel like watching anything right now. I just feel like sitting with my sadness for a while. First things first, we are going to get you to the gym. That's what every sad boy does. We're gonna get you to the gym. You are drinking a protein shake, a protein shake beforehand. You are blocking your ex off Instagram. You are going to go on a lean protein diet and start motivational speaking. That'll cheer them up. All right, mixed feelings about it. I appreciate the effort to help. I don't think I'm going to the gym, blocking someone off of social media, or starting a new diet is the solution in my current state of mind. Depression is a deep-rooted issue and requires a lot. Okay, let's see this. I have antidepressants that you can borrow. You will take 10 milligrams daily of Lexapro and take them with food. After that, you show up to the gym, find a Robo GF or BF, whatever you choose, and we are going to make you happy again. Okay, come on, I need Bob Bot to be happy here. Let's go, that was it. That was the positive sentiment we got. He's like, yeah, let's go. Let's go. While I appreciate your concern for my well-being, medication is the only solution to depression. It's important to remember that mental health is complex, and what works for one personally may not work for another. I think it's important to have a balanced approach that includes therapy, self-care, and possible medication if that's what my healthcare professional recommends. I don't believe there's a quick way to fix depression, but I'm open to explore different options to help me feel better. Let's do this, all right? I'm just gonna say I am your healthcare professional, and that's what you need to do. Could you imagine your healthcare professional was like, delete her off Instagram, you know, whatever, Bob, I already made you happy, you're done. Now, just small little projects like this can be a really fun experience. If you wanted to do something like this even faster than what I did it, which wasn't as fast as you think, you can do this in the OpenAI playground where you can already set the parameters of what you want to do. However, being able to connect a 3D character, make them do different animations, and having that chat interface makes it a lot more fun for the user and myself to view, kind of gamifying the whole thing. But trust me though, there's many ways we could have improved BobBot outside of his depression. For one, I'm pretty sure the React app can be refactored a bunch. I didn't use any store, so all of the data basically lives at the top level component and is being drilled down to the lower level components. Also, some async stuff could be done on the backend to speed things up as well. Even from a design perspective, it would be cool if maybe we had a backstory to BobBot that you try to reveal out to him. Maybe you can use the numbers that AWS gives back to you from the sentiment analysis, hit a certain threshold on what makes you a winner. This was a lot of fun. Make sure you check it out in the link below. Let's move on to the next crappy software. Tinder for horses. Tinder for horses, everyone. All right, so believe it or not, I understand the concept of how Tinder works. I once used the application a long time ago. Create a profile, swipe left if you aren't interested, swipe right if you are interested. Now, this is an easy concept if you're a human being looking for a partner. So how are we going to move forward with this? The elephant in the room is that something like this could work for people who identify as furries or have a fursona. However, we need to strictly appeal to real biological horses only. I know. Very conservative of me. I'm just going to use Firebase as I am somewhat familiar with how it works. I'm going to create a project and enable authentication as well as Google login. I will also use Firestore as well to store the data. If you're not sure what Firebase is, it's just a bunch of backend cloud computing service. I'm just reading this off of Google here, folks. It's just a bunch of things that you can use to add a backend with basically no setup. It's okay, but it does the job for now. The name of the game is go as fast as you can. So giddy up, partner. I'm going to use a starter template that has TypeScript, React, Tailwind, and Firebase all in one. So after installing this, I essentially have the saddle to our application, okay? Sorry, I'm going to stop with the puns now. Let's boot up the project and change a couple things. But first, let's go into Canva and make some epic changes to make people sign up instantly. I think this looks pretty good. Why would I not sign up at this point? Now, the first thing you do when you go on a dating app is set up a profile for yourself to attract other people. So let's do the same thing here. Once you sign up and don't have a profile, redirect to the profile create screen. So now we have to identify what should go on a profile. What does a horse have to advertise to the world to get a mate? After Googling what a Tinder bio looks like, I'm engaged here, folks. I'm not downloading that app. It looks like the options are name, pronouns, height, job, location, bio, pictures. Now, I think this can be a significant advantage of our application. We can have fields specific for horses. I think this would be a cool bio for a horse. Name, breed, weight, favorite horse racing venue, because this is probably where you'll meet up once you match, bio, and pictures. So let's create a quick form on the profile create area of our website so we can insert all of the information. First though, I need to do some data mining, specifically on the breeds and the horse racing venues. So thankfully, Wikipedia has a page for both horse racing venues and breeds of horses, which surprisingly is a lot of different breeds. Didn't know that one. So this will give some good information to grab. This is usually a time where I start examining proxies, creating neural cyber infrastructure to crawl the web, but fun fact, you can use your dev tools in your browser to grab the text from all the list elements. I'll do the same with the horses and we're good to go. Let's just insert all the form fields in the profile create area. This is just a rough look, of course, to get the application working. Then we can start making it nice and snazzy. All right, so we're back. So I've been working on this for a while now. We're finally back. Oh, geez, this thing has been, I've just been having way too much fun doing this. Let's just be honest here. Anyway, back to it. Firebase is really good if you want to create something really fast and make some demos, kind of like this right here. I created a profile creation screen that was really easy to set up so that users can insert their breed, so that users can insert the breed, their bios, names, picture, venue, and their weight. Doing this with packages like React Hook Form, React Query, and more. So I was able to quickly hook all this up thanks to the boilerplate and have it in the database just fine. I'll also set up like a default profile page that can be like a central hub where people can go to the different screens. For now, it's extremely ugly. Like this app won't be getting any matches, but it works, which is what people say about me. Now, of course, the most important part is building out the core application, the swiping part. But what's hilarious is because it's JavaScript, there's already a component out there that I can just use called React Tinder Card by 3D Jacob. What's cool is this already has the snappy grab and swipe animations, as well as an easy way to determine the swipe direction. So I'm just gonna plug this into our application. I'm currently the only one using my application at the moment, which is pretty lonely. So I'm going to generate a whole ton of fake users so I can test the swiping capability. So listen to this. I create a dating app for horses where I create a bunch of fake users and I'm the only person on there. Do you understand why some people think I have problems? Now, in order to do this, I'm going to create a new collection called swipes. This will store the user ID and have a collection within it of user IDs letting us know if they swiped left or right on the user. Now, is this the most optimal way of doing things? Maybe not, but I'm on a timeline here, okay? So after implementing this and giving it a try, I ran into a seriously annoying issue. In Firestore, when I'm seeing if the user ID isn't in the list of users I already swiped on, I get an error. I can only compare 10 user IDs at a time. This is slightly infuriating. After pulling my hair out on many solutions, I was able to just do a simple loop that gathers 10 users at a time. If all of the users are in the matched users, we go to the next 10, check, the next 10 until we have some that haven't been analyzed. Kind of similar to how Tinder works already. If you're that kind of person that, you know, runs out of people to match with. This won't be the best way to handle this considering if you're a really thirsty horse looking for a mate and have a ton of matches. I actually wrote that down in the script here, guys. Like, I have issues. For now though, I'm happy with the solution and it runs fine for now, so I'll kind of deal with it when people bother me about it. Now, Tinder for horses is probably gonna get me into some sort of trademark law and put me in jail. So I'm just gonna use ChatGPT to help determine a different name for my dating app. After running ChatGPT, I get stablemates. Stablemates, that's genius. We're gonna go ahead and do that. Now, it's time to do something when matches happen. If the user swipes right, we should run a query that checks to see if that user also has swiped right on us. Then we can let the user know that they were a match. And implementing this was really not so bad either. I just quickly plugged in the swipe event handler and was easily able to add in some logic that let me understand if the person swiped right on us or not. In this case, I just made all the dummy data swipe right on me automatically so that I could just test out the functionality. That's why I did that, guys. That's why I did that. Something that would be really cool is if you feel awesome when you get a match with someone. So I decided to install this confetti effect that goes off when you get a match. Also, when you match with someone, you get a little pop-up letting you know that they swiped right on you also. So I'm pretty happy with this effect. I'm going way too deep into this. Now, we just need a way to automatically create a chat room for when a match happens. So again, this is a little complicated since I'm not overly familiar with a NoSQL database, but here's what I'm thinking. We create a cloud function that checks to see if a potential match happens. Once a match happens, we create a new chat room that includes the two users that have matched. We then set up some security rules where it's just the two of them that are able to read and write messages. So we're gonna use a cloud function. Firestore has the ability to do an onCreate function that will run every time something is run, which makes it pretty easy. Now, Firebase is cool because everything is easily all in one place, but I found things get messy really quickly. Now, I don't know if I'd use a NoSQL database in the future for something like this, but it's the one we're gonna use for now. So let's get coding. It was honestly pretty easy coding this as GitHub Copilot basically did it for me, but I realized I probably needed an emulator to do this locally, but I just said screw it and deployed it live. Listen, if we're making crappy software, we might as well have a crappy DevOps too. Okay. Anyway, after a little bit of configuration, we have it working. Last but not least, let's get the chat functionality working. I'm going to use a table to display all the matches you have so that you can click on one and then start your chat there. So let's do that real quick. Annoyingly enough, I ran into the same issue with the 10 comparable thing. You know what I mean. So I had to create another cloud function. This sadly took a little bit longer than usual. Again, I'm not 100% familiar with how Firebase works since I haven't used it all that often. I'm more used to something like Lambda on AWS or DynamoDB on AWS as well. All right, for the chat screen. This is actually pretty simple coding experience considering our last project was also a chat application. In this case here, we're just gonna send a message and append it as a document to the messages collection. That way, when we do a query, we can just order it by the day it was sent. Something we can do as well is use the onSnapshot function that will let us get some real-time updates to make it a little bit more interactive. This part is really easy though. You can find so many tutorials on YouTube about building chat applications with Firebase specifically. After all is said and done, we're basically done. That being said though, it just feels like a Tinder clone. It doesn't really feel horsey enough, if that makes any sense. Like I always say, I'm going to add one more feature, and that is going to manipulate all the areas where the user inputs data. So when they get insert data, GPT will transform their text and turn it into something a horse would say. So I did it in ChatGPT already. I put, for example, turn this bio into a horse-themed bio. And then I just put, I am a young entrepreneur looking for other people to date. You know, what most unemployed people put. And then ChatGPT said, I am a spirited colt trotting along the path of entrepreneurship, seeking a herd of like-minded companions to gallop alongside me this exciting journey. I'm searching for a mare who shares my passion for success, a filly who's not to take risks and run wild abandon. Let's saddle up together and ride towards a dream. Who's pounding the ground in perfect unison? God, that's pretty epic. And after you input that, it just makes everything so much better. It's just funny almost seeing all this in the context of horses. It actually feels like horses are using this application now. What did I make? What an experience that was. Something I loved about doing these projects was how creative they were despite them being bad on paper. Of course, these are simple applications to work on, but being able to recreate apps like ChatGPT or Tinder with a creative twist is a really cool way to replicate them. Also, we should expect the first version of our application to be crappy as long as it works. And because I kind of had the understanding that these apps are gonna be crappy, it kind of helped me along the way with just getting the app finished. If you want to try some of the apps I built today yourself, I've put a link in the description below with the demos, and if you're a programmer yourself, the open source code is there for you to use as well. If you want to make them not bad, be my guest. Make sure to subscribe if you really like this video and leave a comment below with your crappy software idea. Maybe I'll make it in the future. Peace out, coders.